Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
I'm not sure where to begin, but I suppose I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Sarah, and I'm a 28-year-old woman who got married to my now husband, John, 6 months ago. John and I have known each other since high school, and we were always good friends, but we didn't start dating until a few years ago. We actually reconnected at our high school reunion 2 years ago that we both attended and started talking at. I found out that he was a single dad with a 2-year-old son. Apparently, his kid's bio mom didn't want to be in their life, and so he was raising the kid by himself. I just melted when I heard that. We started talking over Facebook after that and discovered that we only lived around 40 minutes away from each other. After that, we started going out sometimes and soon started dating. I met his son, and honestly, it was like love at first sight. Things got serious with John as well, and we decided to get married. Less than a year after running into each other at that fated reunion, it might seem like a bit of a hasty decision, and after what happened, I can confidently say that I regret it. But back then, it just felt like we were meant to be. I thought I had found my perfect family. One thing about John is that he has always been an adventurous guy who loves to travel and explore new places. He actually met my stepson's bio mom during one of his trips. I'm more of a homebody, but I loved John and was willing to go along with his plans. Before we got married, John told me that he had planned a 2-week trip to Europe for us to take after our wedding. I was hesitant at first, but I eventually agreed, and we spent the next few months planning and preparing for the trip. We got married in a beautiful ceremony with our families and friends in attendance. It was the happiest day of my life, and I felt like everything was perfect. However, things took a turn for the worse shortly after we returned from our honeymoon. A few days after we got back home, John sat me down and told me that he had to leave for another trip. This time it was a solo trip to South America, and he would be gone for 12 weeks. I was shocked and upset that he would leave me so soon after our wedding. But John reassured me that he would be back soon and that he loved me. The next few weeks were tough. I was left alone with our 4-year-old son, Alex, and I had to take care of everything by myself. I was exhausted and overwhelmed, but I tried my best to be strong for my son. I missed John terribly, but I tried not to let it show. Finally, after 12 long weeks, John came back home. He was happy to see me and Alex, but I could tell that something was off. He was distant and moody, and he spent a lot of time on his phone and computer. I tried to talk to him about it, but he always brushed me off and told me that everything was fine. I tried to believe him, but couldn't shake that feeling that something was wrong. One day, out of the blue, I woke up to an empty bed with a note from John saying that he needed to leave and that I shouldn't try to reach out to him. My first reaction was to run to Alex's room. I saw that he was peacefully sleeping. I was so upset. A million thoughts were running around in my head. Had he just left us again? Where was he now? I tried reaching out to him, but he had blocked me everywhere. I couldn't even call him. I was absolutely devastated. A week after John left, his mother showed up at our door. I was surprised to see her, but I welcomed her inside. She seemed nice initially, but as soon as we sat down to talk, she started berating me and accusing me of ruining John's life. According to her, I was a terrible wife who didn't support John's dreams and ambitions. She said that I was holding him back and that he would be better off without me. I was shocked and hurt by her words, and I tried to defend myself, but she wouldn't listen. Then she dropped the bombshell. John had told her that he was planning to leave me and that he wanted a divorce. His mother told me that John had already started the divorce proceedings and that I needed to leave the house immediately. She also told me that she would be taking Alex with her because that's what John wanted. I was devastated. I couldn't believe that John would do this to me, and I felt like my world was falling apart. But something inside me snapped, and I decided that I wasn't going to go down without a fight. I told John's mother the truth about what had happened. I told her about the 12-week trip that John had planned and how he had left me alone with Alex to go on a solo trip to South America. I told her about how he had been distant and moody since he came back and had left without notice, and I didn't even know where he was. She wouldn't believe me at first, but I showed him all the texts I had sent John while he was in South America. She went through everything and finally believed me. To say she was shocked would be an understatement. She was completely horrified. She apologized to me repeatedly for being nasty to me and said that if she had any idea what was going on, she would have helped me. She then told me that she would make John pay for his actions and cut him off from the family money completely by leaving everything to Alex in a trust fund till he turns 21. She asked if I needed to take care of Alex till we reach a solution regarding John, but I'm honestly happy to have him and see him as my son. She did offer to help financially, which I was glad to accept. Kids are expensive. The whole thing happened yesterday, and I haven't had any contact with John since then. I honestly don't know how he'll react. I've been thinking about our marriage as well, and I don't know if I still want to be married to him. Update 1. I was really not expecting the overwhelming amount of support and encouragement that I've received from the Reddit community. So many people shared their stories and offered advice, and it really helped me to feel less alone during this difficult time. I'm so grateful for all the kind words and messages. It has given me the strength to keep fighting for Alex and myself. To clarify some things, John does have a job of his own. He's a freelance writer and writes about his travels mostly. Honestly, he's pretty good, but it's not his job that pays for his lifestyle, it's his family's money. John's family has been in print media for generations. His grandfather founded a newspaper that is still quite popular, and they also have a publishing house of their own. His mom handles all the business since his dad passed away years ago, when we were in college. My mother-in-law has cut him off financially and canceled all his credit cards. He hasn't reached out to me yet, but I'm sure he'll do so in no time. Alex keeps asking where Dad is, and every time I look at him, my heart just breaks. I'm just really glad to have my mother-in-law by my side. Update 2. Guess who finally showed up? My husband was absolutely furious when he realized his credit card was canceled. He was in Alaska apparently and had to ask a friend for money to fly back home. After coming back, he decided to visit my mother-in-law. Instead of seeing me and Alex, and she told him that she knows everything and that he wouldn't get a penny from her anymore. You can imagine how angry he was. He showed up at our place completely red with anger. We had a huge fight, and he told me I was ruining his life by feeding lies to his mom. I didn't back down either and told him if he doesn't leave, I'd call the cops. He left fuming, telling me that he'll make sure I pay for what I've done. The moment he left, I called my mother-in-law. She helped me get a protective order against my husband, and we've started the divorce process. I'm really glad Alex and I have her by our side. Things are pretty uncertain now, but I'm hopeful that something will work out for the best. Again, thanks for all your kind words. I truly appreciate them. Update 3. Wow, it has been nearly 6 months since my last update. I'm sorry for not updating you guys earlier, but so many things have been happening that this completely slipped my mind. After a lot of legal battles and negotiations, I'm happy to say that I am now divorced from John. Many people ask me if I would try to get custody of Alex during the divorce, but honestly, that would get extremely complicated legally as he is the only biological parent, and we've barely been married for a year. Although I do have some good news for you guys, John's mother has been a tremendous help throughout the process, and she holds sole custody of Alex as his biological grandmother. Her excellent lawyers proved that John wasn't a reliable parent because he had left Alex in my care multiple times, and he didn't have a stable source of income. It was a very complicated and exhausting trial, but John's mother won in the end. She's still incredibly nice to me and tells me that I can see Alex anytime I want. Poor baby doesn't understand what's happening, but he's adjusting well to living with his grandma, and I see him practically every other day. I really couldn't have done any of this without her. John has been ordered to pay alimony and is not allowed to contact me or Alex unless it's through our lawyer. It has been a long and difficult road, but I am relieved to finally have some closure and to be able to move on with my life. Your ex-husband is a deadbeat, and I'm really glad the kid is not under his care anymore. I'm pretty sure he only married you so that he has someone to care for his son 24/7 in the first place. You're quite lucky to have your mother-in-law by your side. Some people don't deserve to be parents. You have handled this situation quite well, OP. I honestly don't know what I would have done in your situation. I'm glad Alex is in a safe home now and that you've managed to get rid of your pathetic husband as well. Good luck in the future. Next story. I, 25, female, am not currently dating anybody. However, my brother, Steve, 25, male, is marrying his girlfriend, Natalie, 26, female, of 4 years later in the fall. When Steve and I were 8, our parents, now 59 male and 56 female, divorced. Our parents had 50-50 custody, though I was always closer to our mother and Steve to our father. Our mother had saved her wedding dress, made by her grandmother, for Steve and I to each use on our wedding day with the clause that we would return it in good condition for her to keep and hand down as she saw fit. Natalie knows about this agreement and has said that she would rather buy her own dress. We're all fine with that, but found it weird when 2 weeks ago Steve asked if he could have the dress. My mother asked why Natalie would want it, and Steve clarified that she didn't want it, but he wanted to keep it in his closet leading up to the wedding so that he could feel like he was part of the tradition. My mother gave him the dress. About a week ago, I saw the dress for sale on Facebook. I was enraged and betrayed that they would sell a tradition without consulting any of us. I used my friend's account to buy the dress back. When I showed up at my mother's house with the dress, she was confused, but when I told her what Steve and Natalie tried to do, she was distraught. She burst into tears and called our father. He responded that Steve and Natalie had told him that they were renting out the dress for extra money to fund the wedding, and that he didn't see any problem with it as long as the dress was kept in good condition. A few hours later, Steve and Natalie started blowing up my phone as my father told them that I had tattled to my mother, who then told our father, who then berated them for lying to him. They asked why I was being so nosy in their wedding plans. I explained to them that I had actually bought the dress and wasn't just stalking their Facebook for fun. Everything was getting very complicated with all the phone calls, so I organized a physical family meeting at Steve and Natalie's apartment. This is where I might be the AH. Everybody started shouting at each other. My mother was angry at Steve and Natalie for selling the dress, and our father for calling her dramatic. Our father was angry at Steve and Natalie for telling him that they were renting the dress when they were selling it, angry at my mother for crying and wailing about it, and angry at me for getting us all together before anybody had a chance to calm down. Steve and Natalie are angry at our mother and father for not supporting their financial decisions and angry at me for meddling in their wedding plans. I'm angry at Steve and Natalie for selling a dress that isn't theirs. Everybody's angry at me for keeping the dress at my house, but Steve and Natalie have keys to my mother's house, not mine, and I can't trust them to not just take the dress back. NTA, your brother and his fiancée are dishonest AHs. Your dad, he's one too. He couldn't possibly have believed his ex-wife would be agreeable to the son renting out her handcrafted vintage wedding dress, assuming that is that he's even telling the truth. I'm glad you were able to get the dress back. You might consider convincing your mother to change the locks at her house. Who knows that those two might consider helping themselves too in order to pawn. The silver, the TV, anything of monetary value. NTA, your mom needs to call the cops because what your brother and his fiancée did was both theft and possibly fraud. Theft for sure because they got possession of the dress under false pretenses. Possibly fraud for selling merchandise they knew was stolen. I hope you're able to bring your mom some comfort because her child has horribly betrayed her trust. In your shoes, my brother would be dead to me for doing something like this to our mother, full stop. Next story. I, 18, female, work as a server at a small, locally owned restaurant. A lot of my coworkers are older and are quite unfamiliar with technology. Since the ticket system is online, we ring in our table's order via little computer hubs around the restaurant. We have 5 computer hubs, including the one up front where guests pay. I have one coworker, Kate, fake name, who is in her early 60s. Anytime she has a computer issue, she runs to me. I constantly fix her problems, and she shows no interest in correcting her mistakes. Last weekend, I was working with Kate. Everything was good until about 3/4 of the way through my shift when Kate comes to me. She told me she had an emergency and needed my help. She was checking one of my tables out, a nice family of 4, but it seems as though they had already paid because they were leaving the restaurant. Kate explained that the family's table was still there despite her just checking them out. I checked, and sure enough, it was still there. Kate then said, "Thanks for fixing this," before walking off. Turns out Kate had checked out the wrong table. My table paid for someone else's food rather than their own. I tried to find Kate and explain what had happened, but she brushed me off, saying she was too busy. The table was left until we closed. My manager was on the main computer hub calculating our credit card tips when she called me over about my table that remained. I explained the situation and even showed her the stub tickets as proof. My manager then called Kate in and they had a long discussion. I was cleaning the bathrooms when Kate walked in. She blamed me for the mistake since she came to me to fix it. I explained to her what her mistake was and she dismissed me, saying, "I know that, but why didn't you fix it?" I explained to her that to fix this problem, I would have had to pay out of pocket to cover a mistake she made. She asks me why I didn't pay for the table. I asked her why couldn't she pay for the table herself. She said it was only fair that I paid because it was my table. I told her since it was her mistake, it was only fair she paid for it. Kate ended up paying the bill, and since this isn't her first time doing this, her hours were cut. Now she's texting me about how she won't be able to pay her rent or her water bill this month because she's working less. My other coworkers are saying I'm an asshole for not paying for the ticket to begin with. I don't feel as though I was trying to get her in trouble, but some people never learn until they face the consequences of their actions. AITA. Edit. Thank you all for the advice. I will no longer be letting these people, coworkers, trample over me as they have previously. Edit 2. I'm tired of restating that I do not have to pay for anything. It is something I have done as a courtesy for customers if their bill food was messed up. Management has only asked me to pay once when a similar incident like this happened, except it was my fault and I had checked out the wrong table. The only time I've been required to pay was that time, and I had only been there a few months. NTA. Frankly, no one should be paying for that table. The restaurant should eat that cost rather than taking it out of your or Kate's check. You and Kate still did the work and deserve the pay, even if she made a mistake while working. With that said, Kate is still at fault here, and the talking to she got was deserved. Cutting her hours was too. The important thing here is that absolutely none of this is on your shoulders. You handled this kindly and compassionately all along. No one should be on your case about it. NTA. Do not feel bad for her. She is the issue. She doesn't try to improve, nor does she own up to her mistakes. She is to blame. This is why the manager rightly cut her hours. Do not feel bad, nor help her any further unless she genuinely apologizes for her actions. Stubborn people like that need to face reality. You don't take it out on the person that's constantly helping you, especially when it's not even their fault in the first place. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.